Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated. Welcome back to Nerds Amalgamated. This week we're joined by Savas Savidis, the writer, director, and voice of Yi Ping from the game Tales of Grimace.
Hi, my name is Savas Savidis. I'm a young game developer from Australia, and my game is called Tales of Grimace. It's an indie RPG all about a group of young teenagers saving the world from an evil cult. It's also an exploration of a character getting over his anxiety and depression while making fun of all the indie game tropes.
So how did this come? The Tales of Grimace was it just an idea like try making a game, and here we are?
Well, basically it's a bit of a long story, but video games have always been at the center of my life. You know, when I was a kid, it was always about the Nintendo consoles. I had my Game Boy Advance and my Wii, and I always really wanted to make video games when I'm older. So I kept telling myself, you know, university, I'm gonna study how to make video games, and when I'm an adult, I want to write and direct video games. But then, as time went on, and I was sitting there, it sort of dawned on me: if that's something I want to do, then I've got to start now. I mean, anything in any creative industry is really hard to get your foot in the door. So the more experience you have and the more of a portfolio you have, the better off you are. So one day when I was in about the 9th grade, and I'm in grade 12 now, I said, I'm not waiting any longer. I've got to start right now. So I basically sat down and I said, okay, if I'm making a video game, what kind of story do I want to tell? Or what kind of game do I want to make? So I opened my notebook and I wrote down some ideas. You know, I decided on the basic outline of Tales of Grimace, I wanted to tell a story that was half seriously exploring, you know, your typical indie game stuff about anxiety, depression, but it's also making fun of it as well because, you know, a lot of these indie games are great. Games like Amori, you know, are incredible, but they're really corny at the end of the day. So I sort of wanted to take that part of it, explore it seriously, but also satirize it as well. So that's where the basic concept of Tales of Grimace came. And I decided in order to do that, I would put it in a typical RPG setting and have, you know, sort of a fancy story and have all your different tropes of the different party members. And that's how the game started. But then, like everything, it slowly snowballed. So at first I thought, okay, I'm going to do this in a 3D engine. So at this point, I only had my school laptop and I installed Unreal Engine. Yeah, I installed Unreal Engine and I try to make the game in there, and there were some great tutorials and stuff online, but my God, it's not that easy to use, and it did not run on my school laptop, and it was incredibly frustrating. So I played around with it for a bit, and I thought, okay, maybe if I can't do a 3D RPG, let's do a 2D RPG. And I'd always seen RPG Maker on the internet, and I know it gets a lot of stigma, but it's a great entry-level game engine. So I ended up going with that, and then from there, that's when the momentum started, because I could actually use it and it actually run on my computer, which was the most important part. But so it started there, and then at first I thought I'm going to do everything myself. You know, I'm just going to learn everything, push through, and I'll make it work somehow. But of course, it doesn't work like that. So I basically made the outline of the demo by myself at first, and it was really bad. Like the basic designs of the maps were there, but I thought it was missing some parts. So the first person I reached out to was a guy named Marcelo, who's the lead developer in the game now. And at first, I just wanted him to do some parallax mapping, add some lighting effects, turn my horribly designed maps into something that's a little bit more attractive. And he started there, and he just really transformed it. So from there, I started thinking, okay, I'm not that good at that part, so maybe I'll get him to do more and more work. And then slowly, he took on the role of the lead developer. And then that sort of happened with all the other aspects. The illustrations, actually, I was never good at doing any sort of illustrations, but luckily, I had a really talented family friend of mine, Hannah Pett, who's the lead illustrator and animator on the game, and she was wonderful at doing character designs. So I reached out to her, and it sort of became a game where, okay, who do I know who's really talented and good at this stuff? Who can I take advantage of their abilities? And that's basically how the game snowballed. But one other little story with it, the one aspect which I thought I didn't really know anyone to do was the voice acting. And my original idea was I'm just gonna go buy a mic from JB Hi-Fi, I'll record Yiping's voice lines, and I'll hire some people off the internet to do the other voices. That's what I did. The mic quality was awful. And then the people I hired, they were very talented, but it's very hard to get your vision across when you're messaging people. So what ended up happening was, at this point, I was doing a school production for drama, and in this school production, I was playing like this doofus boyfriend, and he had a girlfriend, and the girl who was playing my girlfriend at the time in the play must have been so disgusted by the thought of playing my girlfriend, and she ended up quitting. So, the teacher, yeah, yeah, but the teacher ended up bringing in girl from the older grade to play my girlfriend in the production, and her name was Bianca Chang, and I had known her because I did an improv competition with her before, and she played God, I played Jesus. It was a big silly thing, but so I sort of knew her, but not really.
I
Yeah,
I can totally picture like God. Yes, my like her voice. Like, wait, why do you sound different?
yeah. So we sort of knew each other, and then we ended up becoming good friends at production, and I thought we really worked well together in terms of acting. So I said to her, would you be interested in playing the main female character in my game? And she said yes. And then from there, it all clicked. I went, okay, I know so many people who do drama and local theater. Why not take advantage of their talents as well, just like with everything else? So I I invited everyone to my basement. I gave them this 40-page script full of spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes that I made them read for all these characters. And I don't know how much of the demo you played, but so did you play the part with Commander Saratellis, like the older father figure? Yeah.
Yep,
So
yep.
originally he was played by a different actor who plays after the demo. You'll meet another one of the main cast, who's this Prince guy, and I had gotten his voice actor. His name is Rhett Kerr, another very talented actor from Cannes, to play Commander Saratellis. But then he also read for the character of Xenon, and he had this whole different take on the character. Instead of like your stereotypical, Vegeta archetype of a prince, like you fool, I'm not being with you guys. He did this calm and pretentious delivery, and I really liked that. And then that also helped me discover that other people's creative visions were important as well, and that's what they were bringing to the game as well. So if I were to do it all myself, then it'd be really streamlined, like what I think is good. And what I think is good is not always what's good. So
Yeah.
that sort of dawned on me from that. And then from there, all of the other main cast fell into place. Ronan, the other main character, I got to be played by Tiago Flores, another amazing actor from Cannes. He had this incredible enthusiasm. I thought, well, that really matches the character. And then Commander Saratellis is actually my friend's father, who again, another amazing actor. And it's just been a wonderful experience to work with all these talented people, and not just making the game and having a product, but getting to hang out with these people, getting to work, and whether it be in the music studio with someone as they're making a song for the game, and then communicating those creative visions, or in the recording studio doing voice acting, and everyone's laughing and having fun. It's been a really rewarding experience outside of the game and just the whole creative process. And yeah, that's basically the whole story of the game, of how it came to be.
Okay. Wow. Oh man. Overall, this whole thing was a homegrown. Like this was all based in Cannes.
Yeah. Well, majority of it's in Cannes, but some of the people I work with, like I mentioned, Marcelo Broca, he's from Brazil. But there are some people who are international, but majority of it is in Cannes.
How did you streamline the process of the entire game? It was your idea, and then Marcelo was the lead game designer.
Yeah.
how did you delegate the whole process? Was it just like did you go had to was it all through like just phone calls and stuff, or was it just through voice chats as well, or Zoom calls as well, or was it just like, okay, I'll send you an email of what I think, and you send me an email of what you think? Like, how did you delegate the whole process?
Look, it was a very messy and almost, yeah, well, stressful and confusing process. So at first you always underestimate how much work everything is. You go, I'll send like Marcelo or whoever, a music person, like a document or a message, and I go, okay, this is what needs to be done. This is my vision. And then you think in your head it's simple. You send them something, you get something back. But of course, communication is really important. So after a while, it becomes like a lot of quick fire messages, a lot of texting, and I find phone calls are always very important, just because some of that meaning gets lost when you message. And like I
Yeah.
said, especially with the voice acting, it is hard to communicate stuff through messages. So after a while, it did become like, okay, I'll give you a call. Like this chunk of work's been done. Let's hop on a call and discuss this or go through this. And it was really great that all of them were really worked really well with me, and they were able to take into consideration, in the case of Marcelo, the time differences and what was going on internationally. I mean, the game was also affected by the Brazil floods. I don't know if you heard about those, but
Yeah,
there were
yeah.
yeah, so there were all this stuff going on in our own worlds. So communication became very important. Yeah.
Huh. And so with even with the communicate even with the communications going through, were there any moments where you kind of had a fork in the road moment, like in terms of you want to go a direction in the story, but then he had another idea like where to go for the story? Like, do you ever had those moments, like even with the communicate, like while through communicating through phone calls and whatnot?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think everyone is always over ambitious, especially with like indie games where you have an incredibly tight budget. I had all these ideas, written down. Okay, there's going to be a shooter section, and then we're going to have this Ace Attorney section, and then and then in your head you're like, okay, all you have to do is code this, do this. It'll be a simple process. And then when it comes to implementing it, Murphy's Law, everything goes wrong. When it comes to making a video game, you've got the worst luck in the world. Anything that could possibly go wrong for you will go wrong. So then it becomes, okay, how can we scale this back and be realistic, right? And I think with the game, it was more about having a polished product rather than throwing in all these cool ideas that weren't going to be, would just be half-assed, right? So we really had to scale back on some stuff. And it's with a game what ended up happening, we had to divide it into two parts. The game that comes out is going to be the first half of the story, and then the second half of the story is going to come out. And that basically happened because, I do not have the time or resources to do a game that length. And it was just a little bit over ambitious as a first game. So yeah, there were plenty of forks in the road. I mean, some of the bigger ones were the battle system. So in the demo, the battle system that is basically a placeholder, but in the final game, which I've got a finished version right now, it it's most comparable to something from Final Fantasy X. Your sort of basic turn-based combat. You have like special moves and stuff, but there are no unique mechanics. It's sort of like an entry-level RPG battle system. And originally, I thought, okay, how can we make this interesting? And I had all these crazy ideas, like, oh, what if it was rhythm-based or something, and you do it in time to the song, and then they sound cool on paper, but when you try to actually make them work, and then you think, oh, this is going to be fun. Most of the time, it's not. It's cool for 5 seconds, but there's a reason why these basic mechanics have stood the test of time, and the other stuff are just gimmicks. Like we all used to play with Wii remotes and wave them around. That was cool for about 5 seconds. And look at it now. No one wants to play a game like that. So there were, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we pulled back a lot of stuff, and basically what's left is if you sift through all the stuff in the game that wasn't needed, this is what's left, basically. So yeah.
Okay. I'm also so curious because your I was gonna say Yiping. So how did the character Yiping, because you're also the main character in the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how did Yiping came into being with the whole Tales of Grimace in the Tales of Grimace part?
Well, basically, I wanted to design a protagonist that wasn't generic. Like, not your really moral fantasy protagonist, not your Bilbo Baggins, always does the right thing. Maybe he's a bit affected by his past, which Yeeping is. I know I just said that, but I wanted to create a character that was appealing primarily to a teenage audience, and something that was fresh and something that seemed a little bit out of place in a fantasy setting. So basically, the way I try to get Yippee to act, at the start at least, is incredibly rude and dismissive. He's not exactly likable at the start, right? But his behavior, I think, is comparable to an adolescent teenage boy, And like that sort of language he uses, the swearing sounds, you get a little bit uncomfortable. You go, oh, this is a little bit corny. But that's also the same way I feel when I hear, teenagers or younger people swearing, in public. So that was what I was trying to mimic. And I think that becomes more appealing, especially with this whole story of anxiety and depression. Because if I were to, do a protagonist, along the lines of someone like Shinji, from Evangelion, he's whining and that, I think it'd get a little bit annoying after a while. So it's sort of this balance. How can we explore this whole world of anxiety and depression? But the character has to be entertaining. He also has to have a really out there personality to create some comedy and to create tension and a dynamic within the group. So that's kind of where Yiping's character came from.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
So, so I got a so in terms of the game, in the game, so what's your take on on those moral choice systems? Like, do you give the players the agency, or are they given or are they just an illusion for in terms of the game?
Well, this may be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I think a good video game story has to be incredibly linear. I
Mm.
think, look, it depends with different with different types of games, but Tales of Grimace, at least, or games within a similar genre, I'm trying to tell a story here, right? I want the person to be observing it, but they are not controlling the story. They may think they're controlling the story, but they're not. So, in terms of how the character could affect the game, the only thing that they affect is the pacing, whether you lose or you move on to the next part of the story. Because I can't really communicate, a point or a character arc if the player can choose how the character might end up. And I know that sort of is a little bit contradictory with most games. You want the player to have freedom and add replay value. But I think if you really want to tell a specific story, then it has to be linear. I mean, I look at other like open world games where there's very, very little linearity. Things like Grand Theft Auto 5, even Red Dead 2, which I know people love the story. I don't find those stories particularly enjoyable because there is too much freedom in it. So in order to keep the tension going, the game is incredibly linear, and the player does not have that much choice in terms of the outcomes for the characters, but they do control, like any other RPG, the battles and how you upgrade your character and what sort of stats they have. But yeah.
Okay. You got any other questions, Professor?
Yeah, so I imagine you really hate the story of Fallout 4.
I haven't played Fallout 4, but I've attempted to play Fallout New Vegas, and like I cannot get into many Bethesda games, to be honest. Like I said, this in my opinion, I don't think you play a Bethesda game for the story. You play it for this freedom, to roam around and to feel immersed in the world. But like I was playing Fallout New Vegas, and I'm like stumbling around and I'm helping out drunk people and picking up mushrooms off the floor, and I'm going, when do we get to the cool stuff? I mean, like when am I going to listen to a profound story? But I say that as well, and maybe I'm a little bit ignorant here, but I've been getting really into Skyrim, and I'm going, okay, this is sort of how you do the open world story. So I know I'm just contradicting everything I just said, but it's a bit hit and miss with those stories where you have so much freedom, like I said. But sometimes it can be pulled off. But I don't like this trend in games now where everything has to be open world and the player has so much decisions. Because I look back at some of the best video game stories, in my opinion. And if you look at a game like Silent Hill 2, the player can get different endings, but ultimately they cannot change that character arc, right?
Mm.
The endings will change, but everything up to that point will be the same, and it's completely linear from there. And that's why that story is so good, because they communicate, James's regret and guilt perfectly, because it is a linear story, and the player cannot change it no matter how hard he tries.
Yeah, so the Fallout 4 example I just brought up, the plot basically boils down to my infant son has been kidnapped. I must save my son.
Mm.
Oh, look, something shiny.
Well, yeah, there you go.
So yes, I completely get your thoughts on open world games and
Yeah,
storytelling.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and because I played the demo, I'm not sure, Professor, you played demo as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did take a look at the demo.
Yeah. So I liked the demo, and in terms of how it created the emotional resonance in in the storytelling, I really like that emotional aspect of it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm curious to ask, how did you create that resonance? There are some moments where I had a good chuckle, I I can't I'm not sure how much I can spoil it to people who haven't played demo, but the part where your girlfriend, how she says
No,
like,
not girlfriend in the story, not yet.
yeah, not yet, not yet.
Or maybe not. Sorry, maybe I
Yeah.
spoiled something, but not yet ish.
Okay, so, fair enough. I was gonna say, so there's a scene where like, "Do you know how to ride a ship?" Like, no, yeah, I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
how to ride a ship." And then like, further down, it's like, "Wait, do you know how to ride a ship?" Like, "No, I thought you knew how to ride a ship." And
yeah, yeah.
so was that an improv thing, or was that just like,
Well, uh, some of the writing patterns I try to follow, they're a little bit strange for a video game, but I've always been a huge fan of 80s and 90s sitcoms. Like I live my life by, watching Frasier, Cheers, The Nanny and stuff. And I think in terms of dialogue that keeps people engaged, you really need that sort of sitcom dialogue where they're always quipping each other and there's always jokes. So that's what I try to implement into Tales of Grimace. And especially like that part there, like it was just a little bit of just complete absurdity. And the whole thing is really stupid, right? But
yeah,
it also works perfectly, fits in there as a narrative device. Go, okay, now we get to the next part, introduce the villain, they can get kidnapped. And it also sort of shows the lightheartedness. I mean, we've just had Yiping's mum die, big guilt dream sequence. And now you've got the characters, being sarcastic to each other. And it sort of takes the tension away and lines it up a bit. So it's really there to sort of balance out the mood of the story because yeah, there are some emotional parts of the story, but overall, I do want it to be lighthearted, and that's why I always try and work in jokes somewhere, even if they're a little bit, I don't know. In the second act, there's a whole ball kicking joke, which is a little bit adolescent and silly, but it does help take the tension away and goes, well, this is about a group of teenagers as well. So yeah, that was basically my thought process when writing all like the jokes in there, especially that part you just talked about.
okay. I think we might have covered this question. I was going to ask you about what's the in terms of innovation and stuff. When it comes to game design, in your opinion, what's the biggest tactical limitation that frustrates you today? What that still frustrates you?
In making video games or in video
Yeah,
games in general?
in making video games, like,
I've got a couple. Can I do like three?
yeah,
Because
go nuts, man.
I could sound off about a million different issues. The first issue, which I think is incredibly relevant today, is just the oversaturation of garbage on Steam and Switch as well has gotten really bad. You kind of see it on the PlayStation Store now, but people just get a Unity project, they reskin it, they get some AI images of something that is usually sexually explicit, whack it
Yeah,
on
yeah,
there, and then so, if you put out your game as an indie developer, you go to the PlayStation Store, the Switch Store. I'm looking at a million different reskins of the same golf game with a bunch of anime girls on the front. And I'm going, how is anyone going to find my game? There is absolutely no quality control. And especially with AI now, some people say, you notice, I don't know, I think we're part of the same video game groups on Facebook, but, people go, I'm an AI artist, this and that. And,
yeah,
fair enough.
yeah.
It is a skill that can be used now if you do it properly. But the majority of the time, it's just used for garbage. And there is just so much crap games that are put out with it. It's very hard to get noticed. And even in the RPG genre, you've got these 2D RPGs. My God, there again, it's just oversaturated. So it becomes really hard to get noticed. And then instead of just working on the game now, the side that you have to focus on is the social media. And I don't have social media myself, and the game is social media though, but it's very hard to go viral on social media, and it's a hard thing to understand. Like trying to get yourself noticed in this massive world of the internet is incredibly difficult. So it's not how good your game is anymore. It's about how viral your game is, how you can promote it, how can you get this streamer to play it, right? So that sort of really becomes a huge frustration in making video games. And the other one I want to mention, I wrote an article about this last year, was money and funding when it comes to video games. I mean, there are some indie projects where people can do everything themselves, like I said, but when you start trying to bring in other people, you can't expect people to do things for free. And I've been very lucky. People have worked within my budget, and people have done so much in-kind work that I'm eternally grateful. But money becomes a huge frustration because everything costs money. You think, okay, I can stick within this small budget. You are going to blow that budget 100 times. And it becomes, especially, look, this is why I also said to start this stuff in high school. If you're doing it on the side and you're an adult and you're working a job, it becomes very hard to fund these sort of projects, right? That's why, doing it in high school, I can blow an obscene amount of money and I've still got a roof over my head.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nice.
so funding is always the biggest pain in the ass, but yeah, well, money can solve everyone's problem. So I don't think it's a particularly new problem, but I think it's frustrating to every video game developer. Even though some
Mm.
people have, responded to me and said, "Oh, but you could just do it yourself." Well, I don't have time to focus on myself. I'd rather focus on the other stuff. But yeah,
Okay. When you were saying about the social media element to the game design, how much do you let community feedback influence the development process of your
um,
of a game?
it's very yeah, I take everything with a grain of salt. Like I like good feedback, right? Like I recently went to Smash a convention and I showed the game off and I got a lot of great feedback from people who told me personally, okay, I like this part, but I don't like this part of the story. And I go, okay, all right. And that's serious feedback, right? When people um, you know, take time to properly analyze it and write out an actual response. But then there's also this other side of it where you just get this sort of really absurd kind of feedback. Like on the Steam page, actually, no, I can't do that. It's with defamation. But yeah, oh god, I'm gonna stop myself there. But look, I'll just say that there are some people, who are so negative that it's just sometimes hard to take into account. I mean, there's been a lot of jokes because again it was called Tales of Grimace, and Grimace, the purple guy, and I added Tales of, and it's like introducing the Cane Toad. They think it's part of the Tales of franchise, but it's not. But that's yeah, yeah.
You eating is now Grimace, or everybody just eats fries all the way through the
Yeah,
game.
you won't believe how many jokes like that. But that stuff's amusing. That's fine. But I'm good. Some absurd stuff. People are saying that I've created like a dangerous story, or this is really going to negatively influence society. And I'm going, this is an indie game that a group of high schools have made. Like I don't really think it's that deep. I don't think Deeping is going to go and influence a 6-year-old to go out there and swear and go kill a bunch of people. Like some of this stuff is a little bit absurd. So, like I said, I take it all with a grain of salt, but I do really appreciate good feedback where people, take time to properly critique stuff without just being completely absurd. And it's also quite encouraging, when you get positive feedback as well, and it really makes the whole experience worth it. Yeah.
So your game is a representation of how you face the world on a day-to-day basis. How hard was it to try and make it into the game initially? Like,
Uh, the aspect of how people face the world, is that what you're
yeah, yeah.
Look, that's kind of a big question, but I think when you're writing something like that, where you want, like every other indie story, like your character to go through some existential crisis and how he's going to view the world and how he views himself, I think trying to make it too grounded in reality never works. So that's why the characters become a little bit like caricatures,
Mm.
and you get these really out there plot lines just because it becomes easier to explore these ideas. And I think another one of the key points is don't worry about making things too believable and realistic. If you do something abstract or something completely out there, usually a lot of the time people will find their own meaning it, or they will give their own meaning to it. I mean, I've seen a million different paintings and I'm looking at a bunch of lines everywhere, and someone says, "Oh, this is a really sad painting." I'm going, "Really? It looks like a child's
Oh,
graffiti."
I get that too, and then people are like, "You gotta look at the soul of the painting. Look through the lines." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't see shit. Like it's like reading You ever seen Magic Eye?
No, I haven't. What's that?
Okay, so it's an old book. It's an old like book series, and it tells like it makes people see through a certain image, and you see like through a certain white like squiggly lines, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's a cat. Oh, it's an ox."
Oh,
You're
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah,
how the
yeah.
hell do you see that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So it's sort of people will find their own meaning and stuff. You don't understand how relevant something is until someone plays it and goes, okay, well, I had a similar experience in my life, or this reminds me of that. So that's like I said, try to loosen yourself up. Okay, don't make it too grounded in reality. Do not do like I might be annoying some people here, or like, but do not ever make it a character who's incredibly like inside of his emotions, and it's just you see this with a lot of short films all the time, and it's all incredibly deep, and again, like your Shinji kind of characters inside of his head, it just becomes unentertaining and unrealistic. And yes, people can find meaning in that, but there's a lot more variety, and it becomes more relevant to a person if you diversify it a little bit. and you do kind of go off track a little bit. If that makes sense, it's kind of hard to articulate what I mean, but yeah.
I think I sort of get what you. Yeah, you're
Mm.
right. So you get a lot of like angsty characters in like Shinji, for example, and you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
like, "Oh man, this is so overbearing. Come on, just lighten up a bit, will you?"
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
but do you
Mm.
like the problem is though, like it's hard to make a character when you're using day to day because you have to like try and to pick which sort of qualities to add because it's like nuance.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, I always say that I think there are different ways you can write a character. The main cast in Tales of Grimace is it's a bit of a mix because they are written around certain plot lines, their personality, which I don't want to spoil anything.
yeah,
But
yeah, that's
a,
right.
a lot of the characters are written from my own life experiences and people I know. I had a friend of mine who again had this really jovial personality, and he had you'd have people would be really annoyed at each other or something, and then he'd say something really silly or a joke, and then suddenly all the tension was gone. And I go, well, that's a great character, right? I mean, if you just go out into the world and observe people, you will see so many great characters.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Professor? Professor, are you
Yeah,
there?
I'm here. I'm just processing. Um, I think it's a really interesting way to view the world.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the cool part about it is at least you have your character has an open mind into thinking about about the future and all the cool stuff that happens and whatnot.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
also look at I'm a bit older now. I started writing Tales of Grimace when I was 15. I've rewrote it a little bit, but I also sort of look at it like, oh, this is a piece of writing that was a product of my younger self. Like I think every time you write something, it is a product of your own experiences at the time. So I sort of look at, okay, this is like young teenage me, and now I've sort of changed a bit, but I can still find relevance in this because this was my experience at the time, and I don't know if I'm going like a little bit uh, off track here. Like there are stuff I wrote into the game, especially a lot later on, that you'll see in the full release. Which at the time I was just writing to be entertaining and fictional, but then as time goes on, I had similar things happen to me, and then suddenly they become relevant. It's a bit of a spoiler to tell this story, but
Oh, don't
basically, don't
if
spoil
it's
it.
spoiler if it's spoiler don't do it, don't do it. Like, I don't want people to like ruin the experience of the game if that's the case. But keep it
Maybe there's.
like just. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say maybe there's. I think I could tell it without spoiling too much.
Okay, sure, go for it, man.
But actually, it's not a spoiler for the first part of the game, but the second part of the game, they sing this song, and the song goes, "Till we meet again." It's a World War II song that they would sing to the people in the military as they go off, and so the whole cast sing. And I did that just for a little bit of fun there in the second part of the game. But then when I was moving out of Kansas, we were recording that part. The cast, the whole cast was there, and that was my last day there. And we're all singing this song till we meet again. I go, oh my god, like this is relevant to me. I'm about to move and say goodbye to all these. And it was sort of a crazy moment where the fictional world of the game collided with my real world.
Ah.
Yeah.
So when you developed this game as well, what was the common myths that you encountered when creating this game? Like in terms of story writing, in terms of gameplay production, anything. Like what was the biggest common myths that you've encountered?
Um. Oh. Okay. That's a good question. I feel like I've touched on a lot of roadblock issues, but I think one of two main myths that you often see people talk about the internet. One, publishers. Publishers are very difficult to get for a video game. I mean, I created all sorts of pitch documents and emailed 100 people. Going, oh, this is my game, blah blah blah. My name's Savas Savidis. Here's a vertical slice of the game. And out of that, a million people I emailed, maybe got 12 rejection letters or something. The other people didn't even respond to it. And then, of course, every single publisher added me to their email list, and I just get advertisements for every game they publish now, which is really annoying. But get, but yeah, getting a publisher is not an easy thing, and you see a lot. If you like go into internet groups, they go, okay, all you have to do is this, create some catchy elevator pitch for your game. That's not how it works. They're looking for people who have a pre-established portfolio for them to act on someone who it's their first game is very rare. And it has to be something, look, if you're trying something new, like you've got a new game concept that there is no evidence of the game doing well in a certain market, they're going to be very hesitant to act on it because at the end of the day, they want to make money as well, right? It's not like, they're not there to spot talent and to help your career out. They've got to make money. They've got to pay the bills. But I was very lucky that with this, the publisher that's publishing Tales of Grimace, CRX Entertainment, I had it was a bit of a long story to get there, but I had spoken to the director of the company originally to pitch it to other publishers, but then we eventually didn't do that. But I kept in contact with him, and I would ask for advice and show off certain parts of the game, and eventually because I had established that relationship, he offered to publish the game through his publisher, and I was very blessed in that area. But for other aspiring video game developers, if it's like one of your first games, the likelihood of getting a publisher is it's a bit of a myth, right? It's very unlikely, and it's not a reflection of how good your game is. It's a reflection of how much evidence there is that your game is going to do well. Like I said, if you don't have the portfolio, they become very hesitant to act on it. And that's sort of that's basically it. And the other myth which I found, which was really annoying, which always got my hopes up, was a lot of government sectors, especially in Australia now, they're starting to offer more. They have video game grants, right? And they sound awesome on paper, $20,000 or $200,000 for aspiring young game developers. And I thought, okay, maybe this is government grant, right? They're not expecting to make money off this. Well, they're not going to make money off it, right? So I thought, maybe it's different than getting funding from a publisher. So most of the grants I tried to apply for, I wasn't eligible because I'm not 18. Really annoying, but I applied for a couple, and huge lists of stuff you got to put in, not just creative pitches or that. You got to create a CV bio and letters of commitment from every single person who's worked on the game, and it is a mountain of work to do.
That must have been tough because you with your with your lead designer over in Brazil, like, hey man, can you write this document as well? They'd be like, what the hell do
Yeah,
I
yeah.
what the hell do I know how to write this?
Yeah,
That
I know.
must
It was
have
like it's like people you're doing in-kind work with, people who've done a favor for you. Go, oh, by the way, here's a ton of extra work I want you to do as well, and I'm not going to pay you for it. And, oh man, but yeah. So I applied for a couple of those, and I even had some meetings with people who worked for, at the time I was in Queensland, so it was Screen Queensland and Entertainment Queensland or Arts Queensland, whatever. I spoke to them, really gets your hopes up, and you sort of start structuring the development process around, okay, but I'm going to get $20,000 later, which is very wishful thinking, and it is incredibly dangerous. But like, very similar to the publishers, they don't actually act on on trying to help people start their career. What ends up happening is they end up picking people who do have that portfolio, who do have evidence that, okay, this game is going to do well in this market because a very similar game came out and it made all this money. So that was a really big myth, that you can, apply for a video game grant and get all this money to help you out. When in reality, it's very similar to getting funding from a publisher. You do need a lot of experience. And, maybe later down the road when I can say I've established myself and, look at all this work I've done, and here, look at all this money I've got. I mean, I wouldn't have the money if I'm asking for money, but still, maybe I'll be able to take advantage of those things. But if you're a new developer, it is very difficult.
You mentioned being the publisher. Like, how do you balance out the creative freedom with publisher demands and market trends when you're in that realm?
Look, my publisher's been very, very good. I have complete creative freedom. They don't oh they don't really affect, what I want to write, what I want in the game. The only thing that they look out for is, okay, if you're putting a game out and you want to apply to, I don't know, a teenage audience, if your game has some themes that make the ESRB rated adult only or E for everyone, you might not hit that target audience. So that's really the only thing that they affect. But yeah, they've been great. They haven't really made the creative process any more difficult. Yeah.
Okay. So when you pitched, I think you initially mentioned when you pitched the game to the publisher, they were okay with it. So I was going to say, what was their initial? I think I had to ask you what was their initial reaction, didn't I, for the game?
For the game from the publishers or
Yeah, from the publisher. Yeah, what was their
oh,
initial
the publisher
reaction?
I'm with right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how much I should be sharing, but
No, just maybe like a sentence or two.
a
Like
sentence
if
or two. I look, it was overall positive, but like I said, because there are a lot of similar games like 2D RPGs that are just complete garbage. I
yeah.
think they were a tad hesitant, and look, I can understand that. Like I look at the Steam store, put in the RPG Maker tag, and I'm completely disgusted half the time. But luckily they were very they believed in me, very encouraging that they gave me that opportunity. So yeah.
In the when you were creating this game, did you had like the hardest moment as a developer and thought this is so hard, but I'm gonna keep going with this game? Like, was there a moment in that moment in time?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of moments like that. A lot of moments where game development gets stagnant, and especially because a game is not like a book. There are so many different aspects, right? You've got illustrations, voice acting, music, the maps, character sprites. It only works if everyone is working together. So, when someone has something else going on in their life and they've got to pause working, then that means it's a domino effect. Okay, I've got to this person has to stop working now because they're waiting for this part. And, like ripples in a pond, slowly everyone is affected by it and it becomes stagnant for a while. And then those parts where game development is stagnant, it becomes, really, really stressful because, oh my God, like we've just blown our time expectations and, no progress has been made. But, you've just got to sort of wait it out and you've got to really persevere and nudge people and you've got to traverse these, your relationships with people and communication, like I said, becomes key. And you've also got to understand, especially if you're working with people who are doing work for you as a favor, you've got to understand, it is a favor. If I was working for a game development company where, I'm the boss or something and I'm paying these people a good amount of money, then, you can nudge them and go, yeah, okay, you got to do your work. Otherwise you're axed or something. But as an indie developer, when it's a collaboration between a lot of other young people, then it's a lot more difficult. Yeah, no, yeah, that's basically it. Sorry, what was the question again? I think I just completely like went off.
It was basically what's the hardest moment? What was the what was the hardest moments in your career as a developer, and what kept you going?
Oh,
Basically,
yeah, sorry. Yeah, the other one I neglected to mention. Well, actually, I didn't because I mentioned the money before, but everything was very expensive, and it became financing it. Pay this person $100 a week and this person 200 a week, and yeah, that became very expensive. I'm still in high school, and at the time it was a huge cost. I had to figure out how to finance it. I'm very lucky. My parents financially supported me, but trying to pay those bills was stressful and to pay it off, like when I was in Cairns, I ended up getting to a point where I had basically figured out three sources of income. I was working a part-time job, a couple days a week, and then I was also doing digital work for the workplace, and then I was also like reselling stuff on eBay, like video game collections, just
damn.
refurbishing stuff. But then it was just completely overwhelming. I'm trying to work on the game. And I'm oh my God, I'm paying this person. When does the pay come in from this job? And I'm gonna sell this off so I get some money so I can pay this person. And that became very difficult and stressful. But it's you just got to sort of persevere and push through it. Unless, of course, you've got $1 million in the bank or you find a wad of cash somewhere, then it becomes so much easier. But if you're a regular person, then you're just gonna have to push through, unfortunately.
Yeah, budgeting for making a game like that, the budgeting must have been totally insane. Just like, okay,
Yeah,
I gotta have a certain budget for this thing. I got a certain
yeah,
budget for
yeah,
that thing. Oh man, that must have been tough.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What was okay? What was the most expensive aspect of this project in your mind? In your mind, like
That's a difficult one. Probably like, look, it's probably when I'm paying Marcelo for the map, working on being the lead developer, it wasn't so much the cost, but it's just because international exchange rates for Australia are so horrible, and you've got to go through
yeah,
like a third party service that you end up like, okay, it's $100 US, which is like what 160, 170 Australian. Plus, they add another 20%. Plus, you got to lose another 10% when it goes over. So you got to add another cost. You end up like on paper it doesn't sound very much, but it ends up ballooning up because these third party services used to transfer money internationally. take such a huge cut, and the exchange rates are horrible. So I think because of that, like it's not his fault, but that probably ended up being the most expensive way. I mean, what can you do though?
And then Marcelo comes up and we're like, "Hey man, where's that money?" He's like, "It's coming, it's coming. It's just
Yeah. Well,
cross."
luckily I was very blessed. I mean, he was very patient and with the money, and he understood that I'm paying off a lot of things, and he gave me that I paid him under what he should have got. Very talented, made the game into such an amazing product for such little money, basically. And I'm very blessed that a lot of people in the project did that.
So throughout this game development cycle that you did with Tales of Grimace, have there been any funny moments that you've encountered in creating this game?
In the I don't have any like specific like stories, but like I said, the chance to hang out with people, and especially the voice acting. I mean, all of us would go to the studio together, and we'd sit in the booth, and we'd end up staying there at night, and just sitting there at night eating food, eating Uber Eats, and you've got some stupid recurring joke. Someone did something stupid back before, and you bring it up a million times. Everyone's laughing in the booth. Just those like funny experiences and funny times are the most memorable. Like I mentioned before, I won't name specifically what it was, but like yeah, some of the feedback on the internet was just it got so absurd at some points that it was just entertaining. That like I would look at it on my computer and go, "Oh my god, this is hilarious," to be honest. But yeah,
Okay, okay. How about you, Professor? You got any questions?
No.
No. So, should we hit him with the lightning round then, Professor?
Yep, let's do the lightning round.
All right,
lightning
all
round,
right.
okay.
Oh, you got a lightning round for you. Okay,
Okay.
so I got tons of questions. So we might hit some, we might not hit some. So okay,
Okay.
okay. So which one should we hit?
So how
Hit
does this
you.
work? I just blurt out what I'm thinking.
Just think. You can think of some, and you can't think of some. Uh,
Okay.
all right. Let's see. Favorite game of all time.
Oh, uh, Silent Hill 2.
The remake or
Um.
the original?
Original, of course.
Ah, always go. Never
What
beat the
was good?
classics, man.
Exactly.
Okay, most overrated game.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh, okay. Underrated gem.
I'll plug Marcelo's game. Lucid is a game that he made. Great RPG maker game. I think everyone should check it out.
Okay. Game genre you secretly hate.
Mm. Visual novels, and I did mention open world games.
Okay, okay. Game you rage quit the fastest.
This is a weird one, but Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Day.
I saw Angry Joe's review of it, and I agree with that. He
It's
even
awful.
most emotional gaming moment for you.
Wow. Like emotional story moment within a game, or emotional like
Uh, eh,
playing
uh, either.
either. Halo 4 when Cortana dies and the chief hugs Cortana.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was in tears when I saw that cut.
Yeah,
Oh, I was like, oh.
yeah.
If you could ban one game mechanic forever, what would it be?
Ooh. I can't remember what RPG it is, but when you walk around and you slowly lose health. What game was that? It was so silly. I can't remember. It was some PS1 RPG, I think.
Okay, okay. Let's see. What's harder, marketing or debugging?
Marketing.
Marketing. Okay,
Yep.
okay. Your indie dev motto in one word.
Oh, persevere.
Nice, nice. Worst bug you ever had.
There was one where it played like a scream sound effect, but it just like played throughout the whole game, and I couldn't figure out why. It was just constantly screaming in the background.
So, can you imagine like you're talking to someone and it's like they're screaming like, "What the hell am I? Why are you screaming?"
Yeah.
Ever rage deleted your own game?
No.
No. Let's more. If your game was a sandwich, what would be in it?
Ooh. Okay. Maybe like a layer of. It'd be like a deli sandwich. It'd be like smoked turkey, huge thing of salami, some other cold cuts, lettuce, salt and pepper, but no mayonnaise. I don't mind mayonnaise, but it's always overkill. and I don't think the game is overkill, so we're going to limit the mayonnaise.
Okay. What weird dev superstition do you totally believe in?
A weird dev superstition. I don't know if this is, well, it kind of is. Like I said before, everything will go wrong for you. Don't be positive.
Ah,
You got to plan for the worst that nothing's going to work out.
uh, what's your game? What's your game's alignment? Lawful good or Gremlin energy?
Gremlin energy.
Gremlin energy. Okay, and do one final one. Gonna say it's like I'm trying to find it. Trying to find it. Damn it.
So good.
Coffee or energy drinks while coding?
Can I say tea? Because I really dislike both.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. So, what would before we end this episode, you okay with that, Professor? Before we end, we can end this episode. You okay with
Yep.
that?
I'm happy
Yeah.
to wrap up.
Yeah. So before we end this episode, is there anything you want to share, in terms of like what, when's the game coming out? How, where can they find the game? How are you gonna any future projects or anything like that? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Tales of Grimace. The release date will be announced next month, so keep your ears and eyes out for that. You can check us out on. I've got a website, talesofgrimace.com, but also Tales of Grimace official on Instagram, Tales of Grimace video game on Facebook, Tales of Grimace official again on YouTube. I've got. If you just search Tales of Grimace on Reddit, X, Quora, Flickr, there's an account on there. Basically, we're everywhere. Future projects. There's something else in the work, something completely different to Tales of Grimace. Just keep your ears out for that one, and give the game a wish list, try the demo, and thank you so much for having me on here.
Welcome, man. You're welcome. Anytime.
Thanks
Yeah,
for joining us.
thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And that's all we have for this week. Stay happy, stay nerdy. See you guys.
Look after
Oh.
yourselves, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.
Before,